When I was a child, my parents would drive up to the city on the weekend to go visit my grandmother. And during the long drive, I'd stare out the window, let my mind wander, and I'd always find myself dozing off. But suddenly, I'd hear a loud noise, and I'd wake up. It was those rumble strips in the road. Now, those are there to wake us up and slow us down and warn us that we need to go slower as we approach a toll booth, and we need that. We need that sensory wake-up call to snap us out of a daze when we're driving. And I'm telling you this story because I think God uses certain circumstances in our lives to do the same thing, to wake us up, to call us out of our routines and get us to think more about where we've been and where we are right now and where our lives are going. The problem is, sometimes we don't like to do that. There's a part of us that's afraid to go there. We don't want to have to think about all that. I think it's because sometimes we're just afraid of what we'll see.
It's like you're driving along 65 miles an hour, things are fine until the check engine light comes on. And then you make a decision to ignore the check engine light because the car's fine. Or you're sitting at home and the smoke alarm goes off in the next room and you sniff, no fire, it's probably fine, so ignore it. We're all tempted to ignore the check engine light and ignore the smoke alarm. But the fact is, we ought to do it because there's a lot in it for us.
I hate having to pause and think about it when I know that I've done something wrong, whether I've hurt my husband or a friend. And I sit there and I play those conversations over and over again in my mind. And I think, if I had just said it this way, or if I just reacted that way, then maybe I wouldn't be sitting here right now with this pit in my stomach, trying to figure out, what am I gonna do with this?
I think as a culture, you can kind of agree that we're not really good when it comes to feeling our feelings unless they're happy ones. And so when it comes to whether it's, just anxiety or anger or envy or just any difficult feeling, the typical reaction is we want to medicate it. We just want it to go away. And I think the same thing happens when it comes to our guilt. We pretend like if you feel guilty, well, the problem is your feeling. Get rid of that. When in reality, the deeper problem is the root of the behavior that caused the guilt.
The other morning, I got into a tense conversation with my wife right before I'm leaving for work. And I'm feeling some of that guilt on my drive up. And so what do I do with that, right? Like, I think it's a good thing that I'm experiencing that guilt. Like, I think I should be concerned about myself if I didn't experience remorse and guilt over things like that. I mean, I did some things wrong. I handled the situation poorly. The guilt actually helps me respond. It helps me take action to make amends. So I call my wife and say, okay, that was really stupid what I said. I'm sorry. And will you forgive me? Which then allows me to kind of move on. Right? If I had no remorse, no guilt, I think I'd be a sociopath.
The feeling that we get, that's our conscience. That's our conscience speaking. We have to let that voice speak because what it does is it spurs us on to take responsibility. It spurs us on to say, I'm sorry. And those are good things because it helps us to grow. And when we do that, we become better men and women, husbands and wives, friends and neighbors, all of those things that we want to be. So when we sense that regret, it's not a bad thing, although that's what our world would like us to believe. We live in this world of no regrets. But actually that regret and that conscience speaking is God's voice calling to us to set things right.